Hi, Melissa Jonsson. Thank you so much for joining me today to be a part of the Breaking Through the Void Summit.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So we are going to talk about true authentic power from the field of the heart, integrity, authenticity, and self-love. That's the topic of our discussion, but we'll see what else comes up as we go through everything. I wanted to start by introducing you really to the participants of the summit, just for them to let you know who you are, what you've done, books you've written, and so on, just to position you before we start. So I'll do that if that's okay. So you are Melissa Joy Jonsson, or M-Joy as you're also known. You're an author, speaker, founder and instructor of the M-Joy seminars. You are known for your ability to engage people from all over the world to embrace their true authentic power by playing in the field of the heart. You have a unique perspective on how we're able to experience living joyfully and loving completely. You have been teaching popular life transformational matrix energetics seminars around the globe since 2008. And in 2014, you launched the M-Joy seminar teachings, a unifying we movement in consciousness dedicated to heart-centered awareness and practical personal empowerment for everyone. And your teachings are a culmination of your expansive work, integrating scientific principles and spiritual concepts into practical daily experiences. Sounds fantastic. You're also the author of a number of best-selling books, such as The Integrity Effect, The Little Book of Big Potentials, 24 Fields of Flow, Fulfillment, Abundance, and Joy in Everyday Life, M-Joy Practically Speaking, Matrix Energetics, and Living Your Infinite Potential. Oh, there's more. Practical Play in the Heart-Centered Way, a complementary play guide to The Little Book of Big Potentials. And you've co-authored books Into the Matrix, Guides, Grace, and the Field of the Heart, and The Physics of Miracles, Tapping into the Field of Consciousness Potential. You've been very busy. That's quite a bio. It sounds fantastic, and I know I've looked at some of your books. I'm reading The Integrity Effect as we speak, nearly 3/4 of the way through. So thank you. Without further ado, let's get started. So one of the things that we said, it's certainly in the title, is about the field of the heart and heart-based living and so on. I think is absolutely critical to us, to humanity, as to where we are at the moment. Now, I'm a heart math coach and trainer, and so I have a strong identity with kind of heart-based living, and that means a lot to me. But can you describe to people what you mean by that? How that affects your work and your interactions with others?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that I can explain it, and I actually explain it differently depending upon who I'm having an interaction with. A heart-centered awareness, it's really a holonomic consciousness of completion. It's something that is absolutely innate to absolutely everyone. And when we connect to the only part of ourselves that really knows itself as being inherently whole and complete and essentially limitless, then we're able to bypass the programming and the conditioning and the conditions around our so-called limitations so that we can really embody extraordinary living. So to me, heart-centered awareness, it's a natural way of being, but it's become very unnatural, so to speak, in the post-industrial, computerized, logic-oriented, compartmentalized way of navigating through society. And so at the heart of everything that I teach, no matter what platform I'm standing on, I teach about the physics of heart-centered awareness. And there is actually a physics to what I refer to as the integrity effect that supports coherency, congruency, and integrity in action that enables us to really create and relate to absolutely everything from a framework of completion. Now that's almost more long-winded than my bio, right? So what I ultimately teach people do is how to access this remembering. And it's not so much that the esoteric meme of remembering who we are, although remembering who we are becomes a facet of it, but it's really connecting into our true authentic self, our core essence that is always no matter what has happened, what is happening. And there is a knowing without knowing how we know, we could call it intuition, that emerges when we live from our heart, and that becomes our GPS for calibrating and navigating through all terrains of consciousness.
And you talked about your true authentic self. So what do you mean by the true authentic self?
Well, there's a lot of, in the same way that there's a lot of people talking about the field of the heart or heart-centered awareness, or even self-love. There's a lot of people talking about the authentic self or the true self. And what the true authentic self is, it's a construct. It's like a virtual reality construct, but it becomes real when you resonate with it. And it is a construct that enables us to live from our hearts and access that limitless potential, while recognizing at a very practical level, we're all experiencing so-called perceived limitations. And so what the true authentic self is, it's an integration and a synthesis of this knowingness that we're limitless beings and we're having these experiences of limitation. How do we leverage the so-called limitation as a springboard to create a trajectory for more of what we truly authentically desire? And so it's really a form of being and embracing being perfectly imperfect. There's as many different ways to practically approach embodying the true authentic expressions of infinite consciousness. It's a very individual experience. But one of the things that I teach students how to do is how to embody heart-centered awareness and then begin questioning everything that we think is true. And so, if we're talking about, moving through the void or making a change in our lives because we're feeling a sense of dissatisfaction or we're feeling incongruent with situations and circumstances that are playing out, well, then start questioning from a framework of curiosity what it is that you perceive to be the limitation, the hindrance, or the placeholder that's preventing you from accessing what you want to experience.
Okay. I wanted to ask you something. It made me think about something you said about addictions. I know there's a really good chapter in your book on addictions and how we're all kind of addicted to something. And I think this is so relevant for now and for the kind of situation that we all find ourselves in right now, because so many people are addicted to, love, drugs, company, shopping, eating, and addicted to being distracted, I think. And that's kind of making so many people feel unfulfilled. How can we overcome addictions? I know in the book you talk about it. We overcome this by reconnecting with the self. And I wondered if you could just kind of elaborate on that, because I think you worded it so beautifully in the book, and I think this is so pertinent to now and to the situation we find ourselves in.
Well, yeah, and specifically in the book, I said we're all addicts and we are all addicted to distractions. That's something that is sort of a foundational principle in the Joy teachings. And one of the things that I've done in most of my books, and I didn't necessarily do it in the integrity effect of the chapter on addictions, is that I profile the neurochemistry of addiction. It actually mimics the exact same neurochemistry of love. So in essence, each time we are in resonance with an addiction, it's a form of attempting to find our true authentic self while simultaneously seeking to avoid it. It's like we're looking for love literally in all of the wrong places. And so through the Joy teachings, whether you read the books or you come to a live experiential seminar, we learn how to modify our resonance so that we stop focusing on the addiction as the distraction, which actually drives us further away from who we truly are. And so one of the ways that you can move out of resonance with addiction, which at the level of physics, it's just a deeply ingrained habit pattern. It's like a closed loop, and we look to the addiction. It's like looking in a mirror while simultaneously looking away from the mirror and looking at your shadow, and you never really can see yourself clearly. And so through the course of a series of teachings connecting to a series of fields, not only do you clear the shame and the blame and the closed loop resonance that tends to perpetuate the addiction, you recognize that the addiction itself is merely what I refer to as a placeholder. It's like it's there to reflect some aspect of not loving self that you have not yet recognized. Now, intellectually, that can create almost more of confusion, and it can seem almost like a way to bypass the experience. But in fact, it's a form of embracing the experience where you can see the inherent utility of the addiction as a distraction. And when it is embraced from the field of the heart, from a space of inclusion, there is a physics there that allows for that closed loop to literally open and other possibilities as choices become available. There's almost this sense when we're engaging in an addiction as a distraction, we feel like we have no choice. And of course, the definition of an addiction is it's a compulsion. Well, the freedom of choice is not there. And what heart-centered awareness and flow, which is the essence of the M-Joy teaching, springs forward is the return of the power of choice. And it happens through self-love, through self-acceptance, through self-compassion. And that all encodes for the physics of integrity such that you no longer need that addiction in order to navigate through your life in entirely the same way. Does that make sense? Because I'm, we would an advanced component of the M-Joy teachings without really introducing the fundamentals, but honestly, you don't need to know the fundamentals in order to access freedom from addictions.
Okay. No, it did make sense, absolutely. And well, maybe it's useful then, because I'd love to know more about the M-Joy teachings as well. Would it be helpful to kind of double back and kind of explain a little bit more about them and how you work with people?
Not necessarily, other than what I'll share is that a lot of times our sense of dissatisfaction in our lives, our perception around being unable to change has very little to do with our willpower or having positive thoughts. It really has more to do with the grids or the fields that we are resonating with. These they're non-electromagnetic. They're essentially morphic fields, which is something that Rupert Sheldrake talks about. But they're the interlocking grids of universal consciousness that construct our experience of reality. And what I teach students how to do is to become aware of those grids, to not only to become aware of them, but to be able to read them, whether you're talking about reading them in your own field or reading them for your clients. And it is a very powerful form of being able to change up your experience of reality, because it's not just you. It's you in relation to absolutely everything. As you know, we live in a very interconnected, interrelated, holonomic universe. Yeah. Everything is influenced by everything. And so it's not enough to just change our thoughts and to say, oh, I am the sole creator of my reality. Absolutely, we are co-creators in our reality, but there's a plethora of individual choices that are intersecting in any given moment, creating our shared reality. And that level of consciousness is held together through grids or fields. And so I teach people how to play in different fields to create different experiences. Like even the concept or construct of addiction, that has a huge morphic field. And if you're talking about addiction from an allopathic morphic field, well, then once an addict, always an addict. And so there's always going to be resonance, even if you haven't let's say you're an alcoholic and you haven't had a drink for 20 years. Well, you're sober alcoholic. You're still in resonance with that morphic field. And so learning how to change up your resonance in these grids is how you change your patterns, because your patterns create your experience of reality.
Wow. So I want to know more about the grids. How you said you become aware of them and you kind of read them. So how do you become aware of them and tune into them?
This kind of dovetails back to what I was saying earlier, but it wasn't in the context. You didn't understand what it meant. Like, start questioning, start paying attention to what are the situations and the circumstances that are playing out in your life and your experience of reality over and over again. Those patterns are symbolic of the grids that you're running or resonating with. And truly at the holonomic interconnected level, there's almost no difference between your personal grids and the collective grids. So you can have a huge charge against something that's playing out at the level of the collective. Like, you're in the UK, you're saved from the politics in the United States right now. But if you take a look at what's happening in the United States, like, our traditional prevailing paradigm it's appearing to fall apart. And from a horizontal perspective, that grid, it looks like we've got mass chaos. Yeah. But from a vertical or even heart-centered holonomic perspective, you can see that grid is unraveling to reveal what is out of integrity, and new grids are coming into formation that are more reflective of that integrity. And so you can be having a huge charge against what's happening, and really that's a placeholder for what's happening in your own personal perspective reality, because all the grids are interconnected. So you could look at it personally, or you could look at it collectively. It's an opportunity for self-responsibility and accountability. Because one of the things about like a holonomic system and grids is that if you change any one portion of that system, there's this ripple effect that changes the whole system. And this is why I teach heart-centered awareness, because the heart itself, as you know, functions like a hologram. And so it gives you access to the totality of all of the grids, all of the fields, and all of the patterns. And that's where the power and freedom of choice prevails.
So from what you were saying then, if once you start to notice these grids and you have an awareness of them, then what that says to me is then you gain new insight. And with new insight, things look different. Are you saying then at that point your resonance changes and then you're open to more resonant, harmonious grids or, different potentials? Is that kind of how it works?
Well, in a sense, yes. If I were to purport to say definitively, I know how anything works. I mean, anytime we think we know anything definitively, then we siphon off what we don't know, which is so much more. However, awareness is power, yet awareness is not always resonance. And so by bringing forth awareness of the grids that you're running, you also open your awareness to other grids that you may not be in resonance with. And so you move from a very limited framework, so to speak, to an expansive, almost all-inclusive framework. And so your resonance change by virtue of simply being aware of your grids. However, sometimes it takes a little bit more. It's like dropping a pebble into the pond. Like, you can be aware of the pond, but you've almost got to put a little bit of a perturbation or a facet of connection in order to establish resonance. So one of the things I teach, and I didn't mean to get so heavy into physics, but you were asking a question that I felt like I didn't want to just give a partial answer because it felt so fluffy. Yeah. But commanding field flow is learning how to become aware of the grids you're running, and then how to consciously choose to resonate with different grids or different morphic fields. And that's at the heart of everything that I teach, because when you're aware of the grids, well, then you're empowered to choose to resonate with different grids. Now, here's why this is so important, that one of the one of the fundamental principles of morphic resonance, and I must pay homage to Rupert Sheldrake because he's the biologist that coined the term, and I honor him dearly. But one of the characteristics of morphic fields is that they're very habitual in nature. And so the more individual consciousnesses resonate with a particular morphic field, the stronger it becomes, the easier it is for other people to resonate with it and to learn the information that's inherent to that field. And so each time an individual unplugs or disconnects from a morphic field, say of fear or lack or limitation or separation, right? Each time we unplug from those types of fields that are distorted grids, and we connect to fields of completion, fields of self-love, fields of authenticity, integrity, connection, you name it. You could throw out all the buzzwords, but they're buzzwords for a reason. Yeah. Then those particular fields of connection and completion become stronger, and more people through morphic resonance are more likely to resonate with those fields. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely makes sense. And then, so I guess that what that's bringing up in me is how important it is right now that we collectively start to understand this stuff. And I was just saying it with someone else earlier about it's so important about thinking what we're kind of putting into the field and, feeding, I guess. So if we can start breaking those habitual kind of chaotic kind of fields that we're tapping into, like we were saying about how the world feels right now and politics, and it's fearful and scary, and I guess on one level many of us are buying into that fear. But if we can break that and step away and tap into a new field that says just what you were saying, actually, do you know what? On another level, it's breaking down what no longer works and it's building it up in a much better form and tapping into that, then the collective will just be able to see that, I'm guessing, more easily because it's that kind of resonant field, isn't it? That the more it's there, the more people can see it.
Yes. Well, because each time you or I change our resonance or connect to a field that is more reflective of our true essence as coherent love and limitless potential, we emit something known as torsion fields, which is they're like signal. They transmit information. It's sort of the science of clairvoyance. We emit torsion fields into the fabric of the ethers. These torsion fields hold the morphic units, or they hold the information of the morphic fields. Yeah. And each time we change up our resonance, those torsion fields are sending signals at the level of the collective. And that's sort of the science behind it. Now, we could even go deeper, though, like how deep into the void or into the rabbit hole do you want to go? Because even though everything appears to be falling apart and there is mass chaos and the global consciousness seems to be focused on division and separation and disconnection and objectification, within that there is seeds of love's completion that are blossoming in new ways, because through the contrast, there's been so much unification. There's been so much compassion. So there's this sort of like, at one level of the hologram, things are falling apart. And at the deepest order, the implicate order where everything's interconnected, there is so much love and compassion that is springing forth through the chaos and the disconnection and the separation. And being able to see that and resonate, it's like seeing beauty in the most non-beautiful things, right? But it's always there. You can always find it if you look for it. And I'm not talking about keeping your head in the sand. Stuff's not happening. That's not contributing to the overall well-being, but it's recognizing, it's seeing all the grids and not just looking at the surface level, but looking vertically in what I refer to as spherical consciousness, which is the consciousness of the field of the heart. Yeah. So what I'm saying is it's so easy to get fearful and afraid and uncertain, and at the same time, rather than moving from a physics of predictability where things are going to continue to be the same way, the physics of possibility, that consciousness is evolving and things are coming together in an entirely new way.
Yeah.
It's just hard because as humans, we don't know what's happening. Yeah. And you turn on the news and you're being programmed for fear.
Absolutely.
Your news is way better. When I'm in the UK, I'll watch news over there because it's so much better than in the United States.
Yeah, it has its moments right now. We've got our own stuff going on, like Brexit and all of that. So we're not immune. I
know. I was actually in the UK the night of the Brexit vote, and so I got to be in that experience, and it was an interesting foreshadowing for what was happening in the United States. So I almost think you're advanced. You're advancing in your mess. You're a few steps ahead of us in the United States. So
yeah. It certainly feels like we are. It really does. So we have a little bit of time. I just wanted to ask about practically dropping into the field of the heart. So if people want to open themselves up to see these other options that we were saying about, other resonant fields and so on, how can they do that practically? If you were to say to someone, drop into the field of your heart, access your intuition, how would you suggest someone would do that?
Well, practically, I would say that the field of the heart, it's really as easy as breathing. And so first of all, I would just remind you, remember to breathe. That happens when we're stressed or tensed or focusing on a problem is we forget to breathe. Our physiology will tense up. We literally get in tension, and then we wonder why our intentions don't manifest. So I would say relax your physiology. A relaxed physiology will naturally put you in the field of the heart. Now, to me, the field of the heart is really just an embodied presence. And what do I mean by that? Well, so often we leave our physical body and we're out spiraling in the parade of the imagined terribles, or, what dread may come or what happened yesterday. We're everywhere but here in an embodied presence. I teach students to give yourself permission to recognize that the field of the heart is, it includes the whole physical body. Like sometimes people will think, oh, I'm in my heart, so I have to be here. And when I'm talking about the field of the heart, the physical heart, not even talking about the heart chakra, not even talking about the measurable electromagnetic field of the heart, although the heart field includes the physical heart, the heart chakra, and the electromagnetic field of the heart, because it includes everything. Yeah. And so I invite students just to drop their awareness literally down into anywhere between the throat and the base of the pelvic floor. A lot of times I will invite people to get really silly. Like if you normally drop here, say for you drop here, I'm going to invite you to drop lower. Go behind your belly button. And being in the field of the heart behind your belly button, which is kind of silly. It's childlike. And you want to make it as silly as possible. If you're super logical and intellectual, well, then I will invite you to put a slide from your brain down to the pool of infinite potential that is available in your heart and see yourself slide down that slide. Whee! And then make a big splash and let your awareness expand out. Now, in actuality, being in the field of the heart, it's a space of no space. So it's individuality meets that which is transpersonal. And so we're kind of dropping into a virtual reality construct, giving it a location in consciousness, but you're actually moving into a space of consciousness potential before that potential has expressed as a distinction and an experience. What that means, simplified, any way that you experience being in the field of the heart is okay. You just want to map it as a reference for what we'll call home. In being mindful of the time, that what I'll add is that it's almost easier to being in the field of the heart by virtue of noticing what takes you out. And part of that really is that it's this place of no place. It's undifferentiated consciousness potential. Sometimes there isn't anything to notice because you're going into the void from which all things emerge. Yeah. So let's do it this way. Why don't you, and I'll use you as an example if you don't mind, why don't you think about something that's going on in your life that's a struggle, it's a problem, or even, think about Brexit, think about what's going on in the UK, and give it a location in your field outside of your body. like I'm picking a place for me that's right about here, and put all of your consciousness in that space.
Okay.
Tell me what you notice. Like, do you feel, as you're miring in this spiraling vortex of a problem, what is it that you're noticing in your physiology?
Well, for me, it's back here somewhere.
Okay, perfect.
And yeah, it just feels like a kind of messy, busy, energetic kind of whirlwind that's going on. But it's quite nice back there because it's contained. And
okay, well, I'm going to move it in front of you if you don't mind. I want you to put all your, let's make a distinction. I want you to leave your heart, move into the pattern.
Okay.
Don't tuck it in your unconscious energetic backpack back there and keep it all contained. I want you to fully immerse yourself in it. I promise you won't die. Okay, go fully in it and track your physiology. This is important. So when you go into that, it was kind of messy. Like, what do you feel? Do you feel tense? Do you feel nervous? Do you feel stressed? Do you feel stuck? What do you feel?
I feel a bit buzzy. The first thing I got was like a lump in my throat where I was like, oh God, I've got to swallow to kind of deal with this. And yeah, a bit tense in my legs.
Perfect.
It's like I want to run away kind of thing.
I'm not going to leave you there forever, I promise. But it's a little bit like if you ask a fish how it breathes underwater and it says, I don't understand what you're even talking about. And then you take the fish out of water and all of a sudden it's tense and it's suffocated, okay? So now if we bring our awareness back into the field of the heart,
yeah,
as an embodied presence, you notice instantly that tension dissipates. And the problem itself may even seem smaller. It might dissolve. It might evolve. It might go back to behind you where it was. And so, you know, I'm condensing a lot of the science into a very simplified, practical way of recognizing this. The heart is our portal into all different options. It's our portal into all possibilities being available. As long as we're spiraling in anything that is outside of an embodied presence, we don't to change it. And so the field of the heart becomes this gateway into our own innate infinite potential, to knowing without knowing how we know. And then we can choose to interact with that problem from a holo framework of completion.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I teach is, now let's take that pattern, let's just drop it into your heart. Okay. Let's integrate it. And I know that might run counterintuitive to what you've been taught, but just integrate it and see what happens instead of stuffing it back there. You might not even be able to find it in entirely the same way.
So what's interesting is I just gave like a deep breath. It was just like, okay, you know, I can do this.
You can do this.
Yeah.
Whereas as long as it's outside of us, or it's back here, or it's we don't have access. When it's integrated, then it's doable, it's feasible. And sometimes we don't even have to interact with it at all. It begins to reconfigure because we've put it into the exact same physics that has the ability to recreate and reconfigure everything.
Yeah. And it's nice as well, because in doing that, what I feel now is when it was out there, it was like a problem. It was separate. It was something I had to deal with, but I didn't really want to go near it. And whereas when I brought it in, it was just like, it was like I had nowhere else to go, really. It was like, well, okay, then we just face this, you know. And I liked that exercise. I liked going out there. And then when I did come back into the heart, I just felt so much more embodied. You know, it's nice to go out of it to know when you're in it, isn't it? You know.
And sometimes that's the easiest way to recognize, because the minute you leave your heart, once you've formed a reference for I'm a fish out of water,
yeah.
Bring awareness, you instantly can come back home into that sea of infinite potential.
Yeah.
And it's something that once you're aware of it, that awareness stays with you. And there's no failure. I mean, we all leave our hearts. We all get sucked into what appears to be happening. But we have much more leverage and wiggle room to influence the pattern when we're holonomically approaching it from the field of the heart.
Yeah.
It's like taking the void, and instead of the void being emptiness, it's voluminous with potential. The heart field, the counter-rotating torsion fields of the heart, I'm not talking about the counter-rotating electromagnetic fields, those torsion fields, that is consciousness spiraling in its own elation. Exact same physics that the universe utilizes in order to create absolutely everything. So when we embody heart-centered awareness, we're embodying the physics that allows for manifestation and transformation to occur.
Yeah. I'm just taking that in and just absorbing that for a second.
Like, we're so incredibly awesome, and we forget this. Yeah. We forget how awesome we are and that we have all of the resources that we need in order to transform any grid.
Yeah.
That's what we're made of.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I'm really taking that in now from the perspective of having seen my stuff as separate and then bringing and knowing them when I was back in the heart and bringing it in. It's just such a different perspective, isn't it? It really
is huge.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing that's beautiful about it, and you'll get this as you get to the last few chapters of the integrity effect, is that the field of the heart, it's devoid of perspective, and yet it includes all perspectives as part of itself, because it's sort of where it's the quantum soup, so to speak, right? So all perspectives, which is just an angle of awareness, are included in the all. And so the field of the heart it's like perspectiveless, but it also means that we have the ability to occupy multiple perspectives simultaneously. Now take that and transfer it to collective grids, ideologies, religions, governments, right? Like what causes war? A singular perspective that our way is the right way, or their way is the wrong way. And when we can occupy multiple perspectives from a heart-centered, holonomic way of being, well, then everybody gets honored, and the humanity of the other side, so to speak, which is still us, right? And just in a different expression, everybody is honored. And now, I'm not saying that heart-centered awareness is going to end war, because war is a huge horrific field and it's been going on for thousands of years, but it starts with the heart, and the heart of it all is the physics of the integrity effect, and it's where we get to live our joy and live our authenticity and really embody extraordinary lives, personally and collectively.
Yeah. I was going to add something, but you know what? I think we should. We're drawing to a close. I think we should end on that, because I think you've just said it. You've just said it all. That's so wonderful. That really is. I've got a real lovely sense of potential now. You know, of thinking about that space and the potential that comes with it, rather than
your whole field expanded. And I know you've done a lot of work with the heart and the heart math, whom I respect immensely. But it just took that and it hologrammed it into an even more expansive state, where I think will translate practically into some very different experiences for you. So I'm excited to hear what changes for you.
Thank you. And
you were awesome to begin with. So now you're exponentially awesome.
Well, you're very, very kind. So we do need to draw to a close. We're nearly out of time, but I just wanted to say, so that was really interesting. I would love people to look into your work and to find out more about you. So we're going to have a link to your website on the Summit website. So if people want to link in and find out more about your work, I know you have sort of events coming up. They can obviously read their books. Is there anything else you want to share with people about connecting with you?
Well, a great way to connect is on my website, www.mjoyheartfield.com. I'm also very active on Facebook, although I try not to run it like an addiction as a distraction. You can find me either at mjoyheartfield, which is my author page, or Melissa Joy Jonsson. I also have a number of free videos on the MJoy YouTube channel, and all of my books are available on Amazon throughout the world. They're also available in audiobook. And come out to a live seminar. I teach seminars around the world every month, and I will be finishing up in the United States later this year, and then I'll be on a 6-month round the world tour next year, so you can catch me through Europe as well as Asia if you're not in the United States. So I'm all over the place. You are correct, I'm busy, but it's a busy time, and we deserve to all embody heart-centered awareness.
Great. Well, I will definitely try and catch up with you when you're in Europe. That would be awesome. Brilliant. Well, Melissa, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating. It was great to do that kind of practical exercise with you as well. I think that always really, it brings alive what you're talking about when you can experience it in that way. So that was really interesting.
Well, thank you for asking.
And thank you again. Thanks for being part of the summit. That was fabulous.
Super duper. Thank you.
Thank you.